Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, I don't want to talk about a specific book, but rather I want to do the usual end of the month wrap up and TBR for the next month, and that would be for January and, of course, February. In terms of what I read in January, there were a lot of interesting reads, but I do feel that I didn't get to everything that I wanted to. And that's largely because I've been stuck on War and Peace for the past 2 to 3 weeks. It's a pretty hefty, pretty dense book. Tolstoy's trying to say a great many things, and he has this wide, grand scoping narrative, which I think to some degree he manages to succeed with telling the story he's trying to tell. Given I'm only 800 pages in right now, but to another extent, I do think that some of what he's writing is complete nonsense. And the story does feel a bit not for me. I hesitate to call it bad, but it's not for me at certain points. And I'll talk more about that when I do a review on it, but that's pretty much where I'm at. And as for February, I have a lot of books that I want to get to. I'm still trying to make my way through the books that I got from various bookstores in 2023. So we'll try to get to some of those books, but other things I'm pretty excited about. It is Black History Month, so I'm looking forward to talking about some Black writers, some that I maybe haven't explored before. I know there's a tendency to focus on the classic Black authors like Ellison or Langston Hughes or whatnot, but I try to find those Black writers who maybe I haven't talked about before or who don't really get mentioned all that much, because it's you have to celebrate all of Black history rather than one specific time period like the Harlem Renaissance. But anyway, without further ado, let's talk about my wrap-up and TBR, and then we'll move on from there. So for January, what did I read? I read a number of books, including The 1,000 Crimes of Ming by Tom Lin, which I thought was pretty good. I really enjoyed how it was a story of revenge, but a bit of an unconventional story about revenge. Spoiling it a little bit, if you haven't watched the video, go and watch it or read the book. But how Ming was trying to get revenge on the men who done him wrong and get back to the woman that he loved. But he ended up finding out that the woman that he loved was terrified of him because he was a hired killer, kind of made that way by society. And so when he meets that woman again, he realizes all of this has kind of been for nothing, and he's been entirely driven by revenge, and who knows what's coming after that. But it ends on a pretty downer point, but it's still a really well told story that I think is probably the best of the month, probably worth seeking out. I also read some graphic novel short stories. One was called 3, which was about a group of people against Spartans, which I thought was pretty bad, not really interesting. And then Preacher by Garth Ennis, which I thought was largely boring. It was mostly focused on a preacher who, after he turns his life around, focuses on God, but specifically how God has abandoned humanity. And so he's sort of going to bring God to justice, which is an interesting idea. But then Ennis just focuses on the violence of it all. And maybe there's something to be said there about how that's our expression of religion and whatnot. But I don't think Ennis is trying to reach that far. I think he's mostly focused on the violence. And given all the comic books and graphic novels that I've been reading, just simply focusing on the violence and the action of it all, it's not it's not enough to really elevate your graphic novel, especially these days. So very disappointed in that. I also read Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey, and that was a book club read that I read for my friend Bevan's book club. If you're interested in reading more about that, click the link to join the Discord so we can have further conversations about that sort of thing. But unfortunately, this month it was a stinker. Rest is resistance. Like it hasn't. There's an interesting idea at the center of it that capitalism has robbed us of our ability to rest, that our workforce is too much upon us and we can't relax anymore. And it's also taken away our ability to dream. And this is especially important for people of color because the white supremacist system kind of relies on you overworking yourself. And that was a very good message, but Trisha kind of repeats herself for 200 pages. And I told Bevan this, like it could have been an email, like this, or like even a pamphlet, but it didn't need to be 200 pages. So I felt that really hurt the story and what Trisha was trying to do there. I also read a number of short stories, including Wandering Devil by Cadwell Turnbull, which I thought was fun. Tell Them Not to Kill Me by Juan Rulfo, about a man pleading for his life and recounting a murder that he did long ago. I thought it was pretty good. Rosemary, which I thought was okay, and The Skull by Philip K. Dick, which was another fun short story. Overall, some pretty solid ones, but I'm looking forward to what else I can find in February there. And then I read a number of poems as well. Check out my Poetry Thursday playlist to find out more about that. But what do I plan on reading in February? As I mentioned earlier, I am currently reading War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Pretty interesting, but as I mentioned, there's some good elements to it, but also some not so great elements. I figure it's going to be a couple days before I can get to a review there, but be on the lookout for that. The Berserk series, I want to get back to that. Hope Was Here by Joan Bauer. That is a Newbery Medal winner and also on my 2024 TBR. Should be an interesting read, and I hope I can get to that in February. Death on Gokumon Island, which is a book that I picked up from from a bookstore in San Francisco, so looking forward to that. And related, another book that I got from the same bookstore is I Am a Cat, which sounds zany, sort of a story told from the perspective of a cat. Interested in seeing where that goes. A bunch of library reads. Hopefully I can find something interesting and exciting there. I don't really have any books planned for Black History Month. It's mostly short stories and poems. But maybe I'll find a high quality shorts or high quality book or something from the library from a Black author. As for short stories, I'm planning to talk about Black authors. The authors that I have lined up thus far are Cyrus Coulter and Henry Dumas, both authors that I've never really heard of before, but they were recommended in some of the websites I looked up for notable Black authors, so be on the lookout for that. And then similarly, poems by Black authors as well. Should be pretty interesting. I found at least one, especially by a poet named Robert Hayden, which in the video I made, I said it goes pretty hard, and indeed it does. It's a very interesting poem called Witch Doctor. And I have a number of other interesting poems lined up too. So be on the lookout for those. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the wrap-up and TBR. If you have anything you want to say about the books that I read in January, or want to comment on my TBR, or you just want to talk about some books that you think I should be reading, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, and I'll find a way to work your recommendations into my reading list, because it's always fun to get some interesting recommendations, whether they are good or bad. At least you'll be reading something recommended by another person. Otherwise, comment, or not comment, but like, share, and subscribe. Join the Discord, as I mentioned below. There's a link to that in the description. Maybe more people can find out about this channel or some of the books that I'm talking about. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and February travels. Farewell.